Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Grab Your Keys. I am super happy today to have Alice Dommert here. And I might have said that wrong. Dommert. Did I say it right? Wrong.
Got
Okay.
it. You
From
got
Prasada. I got Prasada right the first time. It was an easy last name that was giving me some trouble today, which is okay since this is real life and not everything is perfect at all. But I'm super excited to have you on here today. You're transforming company cultures to end burnout. I can't wait to hear about that. And you have 15 plus years in leadership and behavioral change. And I can definitely use some of that sometimes. So, as I think any good leader, if they're not a good leader, they have to be real at the same time. So, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so thank you. I'm excited to be here today. Well, I started in second grade saying I was going to be an architect, and then I became an architect. And then I had married an architect, had architecture babies, and so had an architecture practice for about 12 years,
Wow.
and was really doing learned how to do business development, and then whenever things started to shift in 2008, I realized that what we had been building kind of all that time wasn't really working. The good news was that right around, my kids were really young during 9/11. And I really realized at that time, being a young mom and had family in New York that day, that I needed some new skills. So I had learned mindfulness and other stress reduction tools, shortly after 9/11. So when that shift came, and I was a Union League member at the time, and I was an architect, and I was doing these things. And I realized that I was going to need to make a pivot because we had projects in the pipeline that had taken years that suddenly got paused or just fell off the shelf. No one was thinking about
Right.
design. So I said, all right, what do I do? What do I care about? What am I passionate about? And I really went from launching Prasada to help people. Corporate wellness was a brand new thing in 2009. It was just about biometrics, wasn't very inspired. And I said, I really want to help people learn the skills and the infrastructure that I had learned so that I could, at that point, make a complete career and pivot shift. The great part was that so many people were shifting at that time. It was odd to show up wearing a different hat and being in a different industry the next day from being an architect. But I really felt passionate about, how those skills had helped me be a person, a partner, and a parent.
I love that. I opened up Centennial Lending in 2010, so 2009 into 2010. And it was also that crazy time. I wanted to help my clients, but culture was a big thing. And I think that it allowed Centennial Lending to grow so fast because we were all about the company culture and that our employees and family was first. Which I think is so important even today. Prasada, how did you come up with the name Prasada? I love that name.
We started as Deliver Me Yoga, which was kind of, people thought we were doing yoga in the delivery room. And then we became Deliver Me Wellness. And then I really wanted to expand the name. So the word Prasada is actually a Sanskrit word for an offering of grace.
Oh.
When you see an altar, if you're at a yoga studio, it's the objects that are on the altar, the flowers. And so that just really, I wanted something easy to pronounce.
Yeah.
And so I wanted something that really felt to me as kind of my calling in the world, as something to be an offering of grace.
I love that. I love that because grace is one of my values that I love so much, core values, which is all probably part of the leadership that you teach, is knowing what your core values are. So that is so true. And I love that story. And that's a great story to tell when you're telling people, how you came up with the name.
Yeah.
So I love that. What are your 3 keys to success, or what do you feel the 3 keys to success are?
Yeah. So I kind of just have one. One of my favorite quotes is from Atomic Habits. And
Love that book.
It's really about, we don't rise to our goals, we fall to our systems. So my key to success is taking that architecture mind and building the habits that I know create success, and then continually redesigning those habits. So whether those habits are around sleep, or whether those habits are around eating, or whether they're moving, it's continually, because our lives go through many phases and changes. Right now I'm in a pickleball phase. I'm just obsessed with pickleball. I've been through running phases and all sorts of movement phases. And so that capacity to see ourselves of the art as the architect, that's my title.
Right.
I call myself a whole being architect. Like we all have the capacity, and those little daily habits will get us to where we want to go if we are consistent, if we're not distracted, if we don't start to get eroded in the urgency culture that I think is actually untrue. Many of the things that we get so pressured into getting off of our to-do list are not actually urgent.
So urgency to-do list.
Yes, the illusion of urgency, when sometimes it's just us wanting to kind of check something off so that we could feel like that's good versus not, really prioritizing. Like there is no question that I do meditation and yoga and chanting every day. That is my putting my kind of resources into the bank, because these days we all have a Navy SEAL assignment of work and life. It's kind of the world that we live in. And so building that infrastructure is just so critical. And Brene Brown's new book, I don't know if you just started. But this is Brene Brown. It's
Strong. Oh, no, that's Mel Robbins. I got them confused for a second. But which one is Brene Brown?
Strong Ground. And
I need to get that because I do like Mel Robbins, Strong Ground.
Yeah. And she just really talks about like our infrastructure system, that structural integrity. And that's so familiar to me as an architect. And, that's really what I've brought into the wellness industry from kind of the perspective that I bring as somebody who came to it just from my own experiences. And then really kind of how can we shift? Wellness has been around for a while. It's usually a Fitbit and a water bottle. Fitbits and water bottles don't really change things in an organization.
So, yeah, no, they don't. Yeah. I think that I do believe it needs to be more than that. And I have a book club that I'm gonna have that Strong Ground, since that I need a new book club book. So thanks for recommending that. And I do think that wellness has been around, and I think it does need to be more than the Fitbit or the yoga mat. It needs to, and you need to integrate it into every single day of your life in some way. So like when I work out, I have, instead of working out for an hour, I work out for 45 minutes and then I meditate for the last 15 minutes because I have a hard time meditating, but because I've worked out, I'm tired. So I can at least be, still and calm, and now I'm breathing because I'm trying to get my breath back. So it works for me. And then I can start the day off right, and I have a different mindset on the days that I don't work out and I don't have that 15 minutes of meditation. And I think that it's super good to start somewhere and have that routine and have those non-negotiables of what's right for you. Especially, we just talked about that we have kids about the same age, and I always tell people, I was building my company in 2010. I had a 10-year-old, I had a 7-year-old, I had a 5-ring circus, and I didn't have meditation then. Like I did believe in wellness, I did believe in working out, but I didn't get that until I was probably in my 40s, when I was like, I really need, even though we're still crazy, I need a little bit more for me. But and you need to find out when the right time is. So I love the architect part, because I was not able to, come into my office and take 10 minutes and like breathe and meditate, like where lots of people tell you to do. So I had to put it where it worked for me. And it works different for everyone. Would you say that is the case for everyone?
I think you've totally tapped into it. So it's like if you go to an architect and say, I want to build a house. Well, I could design a teepee for you. I could design a tree house. I could design a houseboat. I could design a brick house. There's a million different solutions. So when I really came into this industry, it was about what's going to work for you, and giving people, and that's what we do in our Whole Being at Work, which is like our foundational wellness program. We give people a lot of different tools, and we're really empowering them, and we teach them how to build habits, not a habit that we're dictating, but how do you get what you want? How do you stack habits? What's the science? And so I really think I'm teaching people how to be architects of their own life. And then, as you said, how to change, how to redesign, because what we're all going to want to do in the summer is very different from the winter. And so knowing that the studies show that people are really good at sort of sustaining a habit for about 12 weeks, knowing that we have to have a novelty, and those are kind of the seasons, and in this area the weather changes, and that we plan for that because we do want a little bit of novelty. We do want to have a new thing that's exciting that you want to do. Or you also know that, like, my meditation is a piece, but I can fit it in here, or I can fit it in here, or I can skip a day. One day is going to be okay, but I know that I've got to like put that in. So you figured out the biggest issue, which is that agency, that you figured out how it worked for you. And that's really what I think is the most important piece.
And I was always jealous of all those people. Like, I would go to a retreat and they would be like, okay, we're going to breathe now and we're going to meditate. And I do this like for 30, 40, an hour a day. And I was always a little, I don't know if jealous, probably envious is a word, that they were able to train and have a system and process. And my system and process just wasn't right for me at the time. So you have to be okay to fail at different things to find out what works for you. And I just had a back issue and I couldn't work out for 2 months. And I also didn't throw meditation in there either. I wasn't like, oh, even though I can't work out, I'm still going to keep my 15 minutes of meditation. It just all went by the wayside. And I started back this week and I can see a total difference, and I was like, wow, I really did miss that. But I'm now enjoying my workout more and enjoying the meditation because it was gone for. So that's so funny what you said. So those 8 weeks of not doing anything gave me a renewed sense that my system and process works for me and I should just keep it up.
Yeah. And that's what I love so much also about all these wearable devices, because these days, I mean, you can get a device. I use the Whoop device, it's the Aura Ring, there's Whom, there's all sorts of things. And I can start to see that data. And so whether it's the data that you collected, which is just first person experience of like, now I really appreciate it. And sometimes we do just take breaks. It's fine to take a break from a habit. It's not a failure. You were focused on healing. You had a whole different schedule with an injury that you were navigating. And so you really took the time to do that. And then the most important thing is you were like, okay, now it's time to shift back into that. You had that perspective to do that. And if we look at most leaders, most really successful people, they have that series of habits. And that's the conversation I love getting into with people. It's not like what is your job, but it's like, all right, I see you're doing amazing, cool things. What are your daily habits like? What do you do?
And it's so funny because the leaders don't even know what their daily habits are. So I was just working with my son and he was like, well, how do you do that? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just do it.
Yeah.
So that's like keying into that it's just so much part of your habits. And that happened this morning and I was looking forward to this conversation. So I was like, it is that dialogue of, well, how do I make sure that, and when I'm talking to this client, I'm like making sure that I'm getting really good notes, and how do I transfer those notes into being transcribed so that they get it all in an email. Then somebody's like, well, how do you do that? Well, it's my system and process, but it's not even broken down. But as a leader, to break them down and actually know what they are so that you can give those to others is actually the next step in transcending that.
Yeah. And really, that's what the field of positive psychology is. Positive psychology was, Marty Seligman, who is local in this area. He's over at Penn. In the 90s, he was like, let's officially make a study of the people who are successful and breaking down what they do, because most successful people it's an innate thing. They've honed it. And so then passing it on. So positive psychology is what works. So the character strengths is one of those aspects. And so one of the programs that's just really well received for our folks that when we go into corporate environments is having them take this character strength assessment. It's on the via character strengths, and then realizing like, oh, my humor is how I navigate. This is what I bring to my clients. My hope, we were working with a social service agency, and a lot of times they get frustrated because they can't give all the services to every family, group that they're working with and those clients. And when I ask them, what is the most meaningful experience you've had working with a family? They realized it was bringing that hope or bringing that humor to the everyday. And so it was their character strengths they were bringing. And once they became aware of that, they could leverage that, but then they could also recognize that in other people. And then also have a better language of appreciation, because any good culture is about us saying not just, oh, Sue, thanks, you did a great job in that meeting, but like, Sue, you brought some creative ideas to that meeting. when it was going off the rails, that really shifted everything. I just always value how you bring that kind of creative insight and perseverance in problem solving to our meeting.
I love that. Yeah. That's super important. I have uh, uh, we have the women's event that we're having, Unlocking the Power of Her, and I'm speaking on confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And as a mortgage person, people would say, well, why do you have to be confident? Well, I have to be confident for my staff to make sure that these loans are getting approved on time, every time. I have to be confident when we're submitting offers that I can instill confidence that these buyers are confident that they're going to be able to make the payment. And then I need to instill confidence in both listing and selling agents so that we can get the deals. So confidence is really super important, but it's so funny. And that's something that I always have been able to have innately. But it's so funny because my daughter's going through the interviewing process and they ask about your parents. Tell me about your mom. And it's so funny that these recruiters are actually understanding the characteristics of the parents to see what type of worker they're going to have. And I just think that that's so innate of them to be finding the characteristics. And we don't even know that this is happening unless we dive deep into the conversation with our kids to see, like, what are they asking you? What did you say? How did they feel about that? And knowing and asking, just like in that meeting, saying that that was confidence, it's also instilling the confidence, well after that.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because this term confidence, what I've found is that through my meditation and through my practices, I am better at listening to my own inner wisdom, we call it in breath work, my own guidance, my own sense. And then when I'm continuing to trust that and speak that is confidence.
It's the authenticity.
Yeah. And it's not something that somebody else, or I achieved a goal, but it's like, am I staying true to what I believe? Am I staying true to the experiences that I have and see? Do I have the courage to really sort of talk about this is working or that's not working, and do that? So yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm going to be there at the.
I know, I can't wait. So if you invite any friends, and if you're listening out there, make sure that you get your tickets to Grab Your Keys. We'll put a link below. Actually, if you're listening on Grab Your Keys, we'll get you to Unlocking the Power of Her. So what's one challenge that you've faced to shape who you are today?
Yeah, I think it was that. It was having built, spent my whole life building a highly technical, and I was one of the few women who were in architecture school, and just building that, having that
Right.
dream, creating an architecture firm, having 12 years of fantastically excited clients and a great portfolio. And then that realization that like I was going to need to shift. And being excited about it, not finding that as like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible, taking that. And I really think that by taking a mindfulness course, getting those skills gave me, what they talk about, the ability to see that as an opportunity.
Right.
Like this is my next level. And this is really my true service. Sometimes we get in the cul-de-sacs where we think that this is taking us off track, but like, this is the work I'm really meant to do.
Right. How did it feel? Like you said, one of very few women in architecture school. How did it feel to like be one of the few women in architecture school? I mean, I know I was one of the few women early on in banking and still to this day. How did that feel, to accomplish that and be in those situations?
Yeah. I will say one thing is that architecture is a very unique field, and I was always so supported. I had so many amazing mentors, male mentors.
Yeah.
And I really loved being in the industry. It's interesting these days, women are more, the majority of women are the architecture students,
right?
Female students. Yeah.
I mean, it's really changed a lot. It changed tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had an uncle who was an architect. So and also when I was interviewing, I remember, I always wanted to have every interview be the most memorable interview that architect man had ever had. I wanted to have just a great conversation, because a lot of times they were nervous. They were interviewing this young woman architect, and so I always just looked at it as like, how can we make this a connection experience? How can we kind of have that impact? And so, switching to still work with groups, still empower people. And it gave me an advantage because a lot of wellness people are a little intimidated when you go into a room of lawyers and you're trying to teach them to breathe. And so I would always say, I know you're wondering who's paying the woman to teach us to breathe. I was acclimated to the business environment.
Right.
So if somebody's sitting there with their arms crossed and looking like they're not having a great time, I can also know that they might be having the most impactful experience. And, I'm here to share the tools, and those who are ready for them will pick them up.
Yeah, that's great. Where do you see the industry that you're in today at Prasada changing, evolving, and where do you hope to be with that?
Yeah. I'm hoping the word wellness will go away because it's just like, it's old, it's stale. We really talk about whole being, and it's not a nice side dish that we do in our spare time.
Right.
Most of us, like you, have reflected. Everybody will come to that moment of like, no, these are the most critical skills. So seeing whatever the name is, I'm not quite sure what we're going to be calling it, whether it's whole being or building culture. I mean, we've tossed around a bunch of different words, but it is the most important thing to build our teams, especially in a time where we're having a talent war, and people are the most important tools. And so the companies that realize that are able to sort of take that capacity to support and train their managers. And this is not rocket science. We have a lot of big problems that we don't know how to solve, how to support people to be good managers, good communicators, build a culture, not rocket science. And in the investment of a company, small dollars.
Right.
So I think it's people recognizing, our program that we have, this a foundational program, is a couple $100 a month to have a robust program for your team. And a lot of small companies think, well, I can't have a wellness program. It's just what big companies do. We have some solutions for that too, because at every level, every size company really should have some foundational whole being support program to tell their people and to truly mean that they care about them. They want to support them as individuals to keep growing and learn.
Yeah, and I think you need to do that, especially with everything with AI and people being nervous about their positions. No, there is not an AI that's going to take a consumer-based product, at least, when you need to have interaction, when relationships draw it, and you need somebody who does have a whole wellness being so that they can really have that interaction and develop those relationships. I mean, it is integral with leadership and managers to have the teams that they want to have.
Yeah, and we do a lot of breath work. I call breath work the sort of answer hiding in plain sight. So this is one of the cases in what we're grappling with in the world today that, we do have some viable, affordable, very effective solutions.
Yeah, that's great for everyone to know. What's a piece of advice that you use all the time?
Breathe.
I knew that was coming.
Breathe, 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 and breathe.
And it actually does work, because I'm a person who's like, oh my gosh, I'm not breathing. Breathe. At least take a breath. You'll feel better if you take a breath. Yeah. And it is true, but it's taken, to speak from experience, it's taken me years. I went to a retreat in California in 2018, and I was like, I have to work on this.
Yeah.
And it's 7 years in the working. And most of the time I'm like, breathe, you'll feel better if you breathe. But we all take for granted that it's just going to be involuntary, but sometimes you do need to take a moment and breathe.
Yeah,
so I agree with you on that.
Yeah, we launched a second company to really leverage breathwork tools. And we talk about tools, practices, and journeys. And so the breath just has so much to offer. And when you tell people, I'm going to help you learn how to breathe a little bit better, nobody resists that. They might resist meditation or yoga. And it does work. We feel it immediately. You don't have to wait for the research to come out or 3 weeks for it to build up and work. So, yeah.
Yes, it does. If you could mentor your younger self, is there anything that you would do differently?
I think I would just keep having that bravery to like push the boundaries, to say the thing that's not working. Don't accept what the status quo is. And, when I started Prasada, I didn't ask anybody. I didn't have a business plan. It was just like, you really have to follow the thing that you feel you are individually called to do. And that work shows up in the passion that you bring to it and the confidence that you bring to it and why it matters. And when we see people in their zone, when we see individuals in their zone doing that, it's very compelling. And so I think that's just keep following what feels good.
Yeah, and they give that following what feels good gives you a great energy,
Yeah.
and it allows you to be healthy, super healthy. So that's also really good. It lets you breathe. What's in the future for Alice?
Yeah, so we have launched this second company, sister company to Prasada, and it's called the Infinite Center. And we are very much focused on all the tools of breath work. We're offering retreats because we can teach you tools that you can do in the moment. We can teach you practices like chanting or qigong or yoga that have breath work matched in. And then in these journeys, that's where we really take people. We apply music, do a deeper dive. You're lying on a mat, and that's where you really tap into some of that inner work that it's similar to a psychedelic experience, but without the psychedelics. And
Mhm.
a lot of times we have things from our past that we're just ready to kind of let metabolize. We don't have to talk through all the details, but just give that space and time for those things to process through, get out of our way, and we can kind of keep going. And so that's very exciting for us. Breathwork is on the rise. It is the new thing for people.
It
And
is.
just see so, and I love doing, as people are coming back together in groups, when people are together in groups and they're spending that time seeing each other, really feeling supported, and finding new communities. A lot of times when we're growing and changing, we kind of outgrow some of the people that we might have been, in relationship with, and those can still stay people in our lives, but we're ready for that next group of people. And so really making connections with people who are ready for that continued growth and expansion.
Yeah, I love everything that you've said. It's been a great episode having you on. Grab your keys, Alice. And thank you so much for being on here with us. And everybody, we will put all of Allison's stuff in the comments below. You'll have all access to it. And I would definitely give her a call if you have any questions on how to do breath work of whole being. And I look forward to seeing you at Unlocking the Power of Her on October 16th. It should be a great event. So if you don't have your tickets for that already, we'll put that link down there too. And Alice will get this out so everyone can see it. And I can't wait to see you. But everyone, grab your keys and then we'll see you next time.